Good morning, everybody. This is Tom Christie in the workshop, and this will be session 2 of creating a Common Loon Palm Frond carving. So in session 1, we got the head roughed out. And before I do the details on the head, set the eyes, etc., I want to take a look at the palm frond body. And those of you that are not carving a palm frond, you may want to just skip this session of the video. But this is the creative part of palm frond carving, is taking a look at the frond that we're going to use. And do I put it in this configuration? Do I put it in this configuration? I want to make full use of the frond. So I'll bring the camera in. We'll talk a little bit more about what do I mean by that. And we'll get started on the body and kind of get the concept developed. That's the goal of this session. By the end of the session, I want to have a head kind of mated to a rough body. If you're enjoying my channel, please hit that subscribe button, and any thumbs up really help as well. Thanks and welcome back. All right, let's look at this palm frond. Just a word about palm fronds in general for those of you that are not familiar with this. It's a carving category that was created in California because the old-time decoy carvers, some of them in California, would use palm fronds as a base material for their decoy bodies. And the reason they would do that, it's nice and lightweight, almost like balsa wood inside. It's got a hard shell on the outside. It was available material to them. And the California decoy competitions created a category for palm frond carving. Again, I want to reiterate, this carving is not going to be going to competition, and that's why I'm featuring it on my website. This is going to a private collector who appreciates palm frond carvings and kind of the traditions around it. So you utilize the palm frond material, and in competition, one of the rules is you can't lose the character of the palm frond shape. It needs to be visible to the judges as they're looking. They can recognize it as a palm frond. In other words, they don't want you to just cut a block out of the frond and then carve a normal decoy body. They want you to showcase the frond. So that's what I want to do. Even though this is not for competition, I really like that aspect of the palm frond carving, and I want to feature this palm frond in the carving. So let's take a look at this together and decide how are we going to orient the palm frond. And there's a couple of options on that. In competition, I've seen a lot of people orient the palm frond with the bin down in the case of a diver because the tail is low to the water. By the way, just a caveat, I had a little damage on this side of the frond, so I've used some Bondo just to fill that in so that we can kind of maintain the beautiful shape of the frond. I could put it in this way, but there's not, in this particular frond, there's not much elevation here. This is a much more broad surface for painting all those beautiful details. So I definitely want to orient it this way, even though the tail may be a little higher than you would see on a loon on a lake. 99 times out of 100, the tail is right on the water or in the water. But that's part of the interpretation and the use of the frond. We have to make use of what we have. So I've got this, I've used my pattern, and I've kind of traced around that, and I want to make full use of the width of the frond. This frond is a big frond from my experience, and it's about 10 inches wide at the broadest point. I also considered, do I want the head at the narrow end because the breast is a little more narrow than the rest of the body. But that really puts the tail up high in the air and is more puddle duck-like. So I definitely want to use this part of the frond, this nice deep shape, for the breast of the bird. So that's probably enough but I just wanted to give you some thoughts about, the decision making that goes into creating a palm frond sculpture. So I'm going to cut this outline on the bandsaw very carefully, and we'll talk about why we need to do that carefully over at the bandsaw. All right, we're going to cut the exterior shape on the bandsaw, and the reason we have to be very careful is there's no flat surface on a palm frond, so it's pretty unstable. The good thing is it's very soft, so it's very easy for the blade to cut, but we're going to have to really keep our hands away from the blade. Again, you've heard me say that repeatedly, but really hang on to this thing and guide it through to get the perimeter cut out. Just another quick note, I actually extended the length a ½ inch from the pattern that I had put together because I wanted to take full advantage of the full length of this frond. All right, I'm going to keep the video normal speed, and I'm going to start on the tail here. The frond is more dense in that more narrow area, so you really have to go at this slowly. You can see I'm taking slices rather than trying to bend the blade around that tail curve too quickly and put it in a bind. I'm just going at that slowly to shape that up. And now I'm going in on one more cut to get that shape right. And now I'm going to go in on the side of the tail. A little bit of a curvature there. Take it where it meets the body and back out. Same thing on this side. And I think rather than try to bend around the corner here, I'm going to go from the opposite direction and meet up with those cuts from this side. You can see I've got a good grip on the frond to keep it from binding and pulling down because the blade wants to pull it down to the surface. Just going very slowly. And re-gripping again to keep my hands out of the way. You can see it's kind of binding a little bit there, so carefully backed out. Going to do the same to the opposite side. Now we can do the breast up front. These palm fronds can tend to have some insect holes in them from burrowing insects, and there's one in the front, right up front on this particular frond. There's no longer an insect in there. I made sure of that. But they bore holes in these because they're so soft. And I need to fill that hole with Bondo. Working the other side of the breast. And I want to leave that full width as much as possible. All right, let's see where we are. I made a couple of cuts on the front to begin to form the breast. with the bandsaw. Now I just want to thin this up, cut an angle down from the tail up here, just to begin to form that up and thin this area up in back. That's all the work I want to do on the bandsaw for the palm frond. Now I want to work on insetting the head into the palm frond to get it in the right attitude and position. I want it turned a little, and I want a nice upturn in the bill on the water. So I will sketch around where this is, and then we'll use some grinding equipment to basically create a pocket to inset this head. To start that process, I've got my dividers in about the diameter of the neck here, and I've got a center line on the palm frond, and I know from the pattern this is where I want the neck to hit the breast. So I'm just scoring a circle to begin with, just to give me a target area as we begin to dig out that pocket to nestle the head in place. So I'm going to use my head pattern as a template as I begin to dig down. I need to remove material back here. This needs to touch here. And the angle is about like that, and I'd say there's probably 3/4 of an inch to an inch that I'm going to have to come down back here to get that head in the proper position. All right, I'm going to use this little 1/4 inch cylindrical burr and very carefully cut through the shell material. As we talked about, the shell is a little harder, but once you break through that, the palm frond is very punky and soft, and so it's not going to take much time at all to get down to where we need to be on this head pocket. I'm going to speed the video up here just so we can get through this quickly, but you can see the process that way as well. I'm just removing more of the shell material. And again, once you get through the shell, it's easy to punch a big hole in with a burr like this in that very soft material. So I'm using the side of the burr to kind of slope that down towards the back, where the back of the head and neck will tuck into the cape. And now I'm using the end of that burr like an end mill. Just is a very effective way to remove material, especially on a palm frond, because it just blows it out of there. This is a very dusty process, as you can see, so good dust collection equipment is essential, but you're still going to get dust. Now I'm checking the head pattern just to give me a gauge for how much deeper do I have to go, and I'm going to jump ahead here till we get to a kind of a final fit, since this is just a repetitive process. All right, we're further along here and checking with the head. That's starting to look pretty good. I still need to go deeper though, because I want that head to be angled up slightly. That classic loon look on the water. It's starting to fit down in here, and I'll just go through this iterative process until I get a nice fit. And I've probably shown you enough on this process. All right, now I've got the head fit in the way I want it, in the proper attitude, making sure it's level. And now I'm going to use a 3/4 inch round nose burr to begin to round the breast area. And you really have to go at this slow. I've mentioned it already, this material is super soft, and if you press too hard, it's going to dig right in. So I'm just taking light strokes here, kind of removing the remainder of the shell in front there so that I can get a nice rounded curve in the breast. You can also, this is a technique where I'm pushing it away from me, and that's a less aggressive because of the rotation direction of the burr. On my setup, it's less aggressive if I push it away. If I pull it towards me, it'll dig in a little bit more like this when I want to remove the hard shell. I'm going to speed up the video here and just show you kind of a series of shots as I go around the palm frond body rounding areas that I want to have rounded. So this is the breast area, and then I'll jump ahead here, working the underside of the breast to have a nice round shape from the side. Now I'll go to the side of the decoy and just make sure I have nice round features on the side of that palm frond over that bondo repair area and getting everything smoothed up. Now I'm going to go back over everything with the sanding drum. This is that 1/2 inch sanding drum. There's that technique of pushing it away, and it just takes a very thin slice that way. It does a nice job of rounding this material off. This is probably 150 grit sandpaper, and I'll just sand the entire decoy like this. Get the bondo shaped up so you don't have to watch that, but just know that it takes quite a bit of time to get things sanded with this technique. All right, we've got the body generally rounded, rough shaped, kind of have the head positioned where I want it. All right, I want to put a keel on the bottom for a couple of reasons. This is to be a decoy, and also it'll just add stability as the decoy sits on a shelf or the mantle. It'll sit upright. That's the theory anyway. So I've got that marked out on the center line. I'll take material out of here, and then we can embed this walnut keel in the bottom, and then I'll make sure it's square before we set it in place. I used my knife to score those lines, and now I'm going to use the 1/4 inch burr. And the knife score marks help me keep a nice clean edge as I'm grinding through the shell material. So I tried to put those knife scoring marks through the hard shell, and that takes a couple of passes to get that done. But now I'm just going to use this burr and take material out of the entire length of the keel so that we can have a pocket to inset the keel. And again, this is a repetitive process, so I'll show a little bit, and then I'll show you the final result. First pass, I'm just taking the hard shell off and not trying to dig down at too much depth. All right, I've got that milled out so that I can inset the keel. And I'm going to use 2-part epoxy to set the keel and then make sure that it's straight up and down with the Decoy once it's set. And then I'll come back with Bondo and just fill the gaps next to the keel here. Got the 2-part epoxy in there. And the other reason I wanted to do that is totally seal that area up in case the owner wants to throw this in the lake. I'm going to make this watertight so that he could do that if he wanted to. Now I'm going to set the Decoy up and make sure the keel is in the proper orientation. And I'm doing that by looking head on at the bird. Make sure it looks level side to side as that epoxy sets. Now I mixed up a little Bondo and I'm just going to use that to squeegee in the keel. Just fill in the gaps. And then while I'm down here with the Bondo, there are a few places where there are cracks in the palm frond itself. So I'm just going to fill those while I have the material out. And you'll see that with palm fronds, they're going to have flaws here and there. So I'll get that done. And then we'll come back. Now we need to seal the palm frond material, and you can use lots of different sealers. What I'm going to do is use 2-part Decoy epoxy. Mix that up in a cup so the two components are well mixed. And you have to work quickly on this. Now I'm going to add some acetone to thin that mixture quite a bit. Re-stir to make sure that that all goes into solution. And then you want to use an old brush that you're willing to throw away, because it's tough to get this Decoy out of a brush. Okay, that's mixed up pretty good. I had already done one previous coat. So I'm going to grab the Decoy and just let this material soak in, especially to these open grain. Very soft. This puts a little bit of a hard shell back on the surface. And when we paint, the paint won't be absorbing into the palm frond material. So this is kind of messy, and again, you have to work quick, but I'm going to do the entire Decoy like that and give 2 coats on these punky end grain areas. And I'm going to seal the keel with several coats of Deft, so I'm not worried about sealing that up right now. And this gives me a nice handle to keep my hands out of the thin down glue. So I'll get that done, and then we'll let that set and cure. Again, this is just one way to seal up a palm frond. All right, everybody, I think that's a good place to stop on session 2. We've got the palm frond body shaped up and sealed, the head roughed out. Now in session 3, we'll go back to the head. We've got some more detailing to do on the bill. We've got to insert the eyes. There's some carving on the neck feathering that we want to do, and then probably get the head mounted and finish up the carving in the next session. Until then, Tom Christie signing out. Good carving to you.